Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy Carson Fox with another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. And with West Virginia's 2024 spring practice beginning very soon. Oh, it's so exciting. Football is in the air, even though it's just March. Here, I'm going to give you the top 5 players I feel like who have the most to gain from a good showing or an A+ showing in spring practice, the spring games, so on and so forth, this off season heading into summer. So here are my 5, no particular order, but 5. Number 1, Nick Malone. Taking a look at Nick Malone, 6-year senior, right tackle, played 417 snaps in 13 games this past season, backing up Doug Nestor at right tackle, as we know. Did play some left tackle, namely when Wyatt Malone went down in the TCU game after getting eye gouged and then missed the Houston game. But taking a look at the new addition from Jacksonville State, redshirt freshman this past season, Xavier Bosley, who's from Dunbar, West Virginia, so another in-state kid. Played 914 snaps in 13 games. More than double what Malone did this past year. More snaps than any Mountaineer returning offensive lineman. Brandon Yates would have been next. It's just 753. So, holy moly, Xavier Bosley got a ton of playing time this past year. I know down at Jacksonville State, the FCS level, but wow, I was really surprised when I saw that number of how much he played. So again, we're talking about here in Nick Malone, 6-year player, really worked his way up into the program from a guy who was previously a walk-on, now to a 3rd-year player coming from an FCS school. I really think it all just comes down to who gels best with this first team, which we know is pretty set with Jaquay Hubbard, Brandon Yates, Tomas Rimac, and Wyatt Malone alongside whoever starts at right tackle. But I really do think this is just going to be a true position battle. Is there a significant difference between the strength of the left side and left tackle and left guard than there is at right guard and right tackle? If there's an obvious difference, pass protection, run blocking between Nick Malone and Xavier Bosley, I think it's really Malone's position to lose because of the seniority. So I would pencil him in as, the starter right now if I was putting together a depth chart for the spring game. But going into fall camp, it's just going to continue. Since Bosley is an early enrollee, he'll get this spring practice, and it'll be a battle down to the final finish between Nick Malone and Xavier Bosley. So watch that one. Number 2, I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball, and a name that was what an electric player in his first year in Morgantown, wide receiver Traylon Ray. Only 18 catches for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns, but at 6'3", and I know he's going to clock in here at the end of the spring over 200 pounds. He has the prototypical frame to be an outside, take the top off the defense kind of wide receiver like a David Sills or Kevin White. And I think with an off-season in West Virginia's conditioning and nutrition programs, Ray, I would love to see him play at 205, coming in at 190 this past year. And you heard this narrative from Neil Brown all last season that he came in late into the summer, I think playing his high school baseball career into June, so got to West Virginia late, didn't have the full off-season, got into camp. We didn't see much of Traylon Ray really until the last quarter or last third of the year. So if he can get in there, be bigger, faster, stronger against all of the defensive backs, even though he's just a true sophomore, we'll go back and watch what he did down the stretch, including that near catch, I call it a near catch, on the sidelines against Oklahoma. And you will see the kind of potential he oozes as West Virginia's big play guy. Did it in the Baylor game, did it in the Mayo Bowl against North Carolina. I think you'll get better production from Ray in year 2 than what West Virginia received from Devin Carter this past season, as West Virginia's presumed number 1, who really just did okay at that position. So just plug in, I feel like Traylon Ray is your number 1 wide receiver right alongside Hudson Clement as your number 2, and then Jaden Bray as your number 3. So that is a nice segue into my third player who I think needs to have a really good spring is Rodney Gallagher. I'm not knocking Rodney Gallagher's first year because I think we honestly saw what I expected. And I talked about this preseason. That was a guy who was an awesome athlete. 4-star worthy athlete. But he played quarterback his last 2 high school seasons, who didn't enroll early because he played last high school basketball season, didn't have those extra 15 practices to work on his route running and development at the wide receiver position in a very run-heavy offense that had a lot of mouths to feed. Beginning of the year with 2 guys who ended up transferring out of the program and then finding footing really once it was Jeremiah Aaron and the wide receiver who transferred alongside him, name escapes me at the moment, who ended up leaving the program. So I think he was used basically as a gadget guy. I thought that West Virginia would have used him earlier in special teams, but we didn't see as much as I would have liked to have seen out of Rodney Gallagher on special teams this year, and just namely because Preston Fox was so consistently solid. And then you wanted to get Beanie Bishop involved, but he was too valuable to take away from this defense, leading the team in the defensive secondary. So it's just like Gallagher really necessarily didn't find his footing to the degree that you would have thought in year 1. So I would have now in year 2. I think he has a full off season to put on weight. I think, and he just needed to add some bulk to his frame a little bit, so that he doesn't get pushed back by some of these defensive backs. But if he can keep his speed, be used as that jet sweep kind of guy, getting to the outside, in the same vein that West Virginia uses Jaheim White a lot. I really like what Gallagher's potential still is, at least getting in there and being that number 4 wide receiver. So just 8 catches on the year last year for 65 yards, 9 games played, 12 carries for 70 yards rushing. I think I'd like to see him do more of the same, maybe double those carries. I know you got a lot of ball carriers with Garrett Green, Jaheim White, and C.J. Donaldson toting the rock, but I would love to see used a couple carries a game, or if he breaks one off and feeding him again to Rodney Gallagher, using that. And I think he could definitely quadruple his catches to get just around 30 or more. I mean, that's what Hudson Clement did this past season. And we know Clement missed about 2 games of the season, didn't really play in the home opener, the season opener against Penn State on the road. So I think the first part for Rodney Gallagher is to get utilized on special teams. Whether that's beating out Preston Fox at punt returner and starting there, or he's alongside Jaheim White on the kick return, that's how I want to see him. So then at the wide receiver position, it's going to be tough because the addition of Jaden Bray from Oklahoma State, the continued presence of Preston Fox, who had his best year in some big catches in 2023, really appears to be roadblocks in Gallagher's development for that number 4 wide receiver position. And with the additions of 4-star Day Farmer, who West Virginia got late on signing day, bringing in Brandon Raymond, who was at one time a 4-star guy when he originally committed in the summer of 2023. These are 2 guys that I think the floor has been raised at the wide receiver position, and that is a great thing for West Virginia, that this wide receiver room can really now go about 7, 8, 9 deep. Haven't even talked about E.J. Horton. Is Jarrell Williams ever going to get a legitimate shot? That's the thing, that this wide receiver room is competition. And I love that. I love having competition, raise the floor of quality depth, and that's the thing, is Rodney Gallagher's going to have to keep up. And because right now, Traylon Ray showing, he's emerging. Hudson Clement, I know, has an extra year on Gallagher in this program, but I mean, the rapport that he was feeling with Garrett Green there at the end of the season, especially in that Duke's Mayo Bowl, like they're they're on the same page. So it's Gallagher's got to get that same, either has to develop that same kind of rapport, get involved, make some big catches, just make plays. That's really it. So there's really nothing negative that I can say about the guy. I really, really want him to do well. Because he is a local guy, Uniontown, not super far from me here in Washington, but I mean, one of the few WPIAL recruits that West Virginia has on its roster to use in recruiting, so you hope that Bilal Marshall can really pay special attention to him, help him in his route running as he gets bigger, as he gets stronger, help him out there to run his great routes, create separation, and then if he can develop rapport with Garrett Green and then Nico Marchiol, if 2024 isn't necessarily the year for him to break that top 3, he's flirting with it, to then, as a junior, he's ready to rock and roll. So I'm keeping special attention on Rodney Gallagher. Number 4, Tai French, outside linebacker. If you listen to General Manager Drew Fabianich in any of the podcast interviews that he's been on in the last couple of months, he's higher on Tai French than just about anyone on West Virginia's defense. And I'd go so far to say that he is the key for West Virginia to make the transition from a 4-2-5 defense that was really a 3-3-5 defense to a more traditional 3-4 defense with 4 linebackers in the lineup for this season. These numbers really pop off the page in 3 years. 329 tackles, 61 for loss, 34.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and an interception. Now can he do it at the Division I Power 4 level? That's awesome. The fact that he did that at FCS, wow. But can he, and I'm glad that he's here, for spring practice, get him in the weight room, working with Mike Joseph, get him in nutrition, get him on the field, and I think he has a lot in that linebacker room to work with. Josiah Trotter coming off injury, Reed Carico coming over from Ohio State, Trey Lathan coming off injury, and Ben Cutter having a great back half of his first year in Morgantown. So if you have on one side Tyron Bradley at the Sam outside linebacker, I've said that then the Jack linebacker, the one who's really more the true pass rusher on the backside, being Tai French, I think that he can be the player that we kind of had all hoped that Jared Bartlett could be over the past 2 to 3 seasons. That, again, I don't think was much fault of his own that Jared Bartlett wasn't a great pass rusher. It was he just wasn't asked to do it. He was more so to just be passive, to be reactive on the backside. And this is what's the big is if you can rush with 3 and then send French, I'd rather have Tai French rushing the quarterback than just having 3 linebackers, and you're either bringing up a safety into the box, smaller body. We've seen a lot of that now over the past couple of 2 or 3 seasons with the Jordan Leslie defense, just that while 2020 was still statistically a great year, you had 2 really good lockdown cornerbacks. You had the Stills brothers on the defensive line, like West Virginia and Tony Fields in the middle of your linebacking core. So I don't see that type of Tony Fields in the middle, and I don't see those type of Stills brothers on the defensive line for this defense. So you have to do it differently. It's insanity to keep doing the same kind of defense that West Virginia's deployed these past couple of years, only rushing 3 and not being a top 60 defense and rush defense. We saw that against when West Virginia played good offenses, or at least teams that had success against them. We saw them got run on by Penn State, by Oklahoma State, by Oklahoma. You almost did against Baylor, but again, that was special teams issues. But still, ended up giving way too many rushing yards to that Sawyer Robertson at quarterback. So that's what I think. Fantarius Cowan was supposed to be the bandit linebacker that Neil Brown and Jordan Leslie have been wanting to deploy for years. And it seemed like it's been decades, if not eons, since Bruce Irvin was on West Virginia's edge rusher, pass rushing specialist, and that they've had a guy there who could do it, who could get to double-digit sacks, who could create havoc, even if you're not getting to a sack, that you're rushing the quarterback enough that you're having him either to escape the pocket, he's getting hit, his arm angle has to be adjusted, and you're causing incompletions or in interceptions, because that's what happens. It's symbiotic between a great pass rush and good pass defense. This is if you deploy this zone defense, namely like the good Pittsburgh Steelers defenses of the mid to late 2000s had, is if you're going to go a zone blitz type scheme, you have maybe 3 seconds max that you have to be after the quarterback, or if you send guys on, go routes, post routes, just deep crossing routes, if you give the quarterback more than enough time to just sit and read the defense and zone coverage, if he's not figuring it out pre-snap, he's figuring it out post-snap, and he can work through his progressions and find the open zones. And that's what you saw, how Dillon Gabriel just carved West Virginia up, is Oklahoma ran and ran and ran all they wanted with success on West Virginia. And when it was like, okay, are you going to stop the run? If not, okay, we're going to go play action pass on you, or we're just going to go deep on you and get Gabriel torch the Mountaineers through the air. Oklahoma did whatever they wanted in that game. So that's why I think Tai French is so important, because I liked what I saw out of Tyron Bradley this year, overperforming when he got opportunities onto the field. I like that rotation at the middle linebacker positions. If Trey Lathan's not ready to go by the start of the season, fine, you got Ben Cutter, and then you can rotate Lathan in. But I think Lathan's going to be ready to go. Josiah Trotter, he's going to be ready to go. I know coming off not having played for an entire full season, but you got Reed Carco also. So again, you can figure it out at those two middle linebacker positions. I trust Bradley. What can French do? Can he be that catalyst that this defense has needed to be multiple, to be versatile, to send pass rushes from a different dimension that you haven't had in a very long time? So, if it's not going to necessarily work out, I would really just explore moving Eddie Vesterinen inside to play a nose tackle, defensive tackle, right next to Fatorma Mulba in that kind of rotation. Put T.J. Jackson at one defensive end, Sean Martin on the opposite end, and run more of a base 4-4-3 than what you want to try and do at a 3-4. But I get that. I just get that sense of everything that Neil Brown's talked about is that that's going to be explored. And I know, why would you bring in Jaheim Joseph from Northwestern to really necessarily be a backup? But again, West Virginia is thin at safety, y'all. I think that you have your true established ones in Aubrey Burks and Anthony Wilson, even though, again, can you upgrade there behind Wilson? That's what I think Jaheim Joseph does. And then you got 5 guys at cornerback to figure one out. And I don't know if West Virginia really gets exploratory with TJ Crandall, because I think he's a guy, big, long guy, who could potentially play safety anyway. If you want to roll with the 4 corners, test Crandall potentially as a free safety. I mean, he's got years of eligibility. So if he's fine with that, I just think Tai French is just so key for what this defense wants to be this year. So I kind of already alluded to it, but I'll say it's those 4. Those 4 at cornerbacks. If Garnet Hollis, this is my 5th player, and I don't really have a player because I think it's really a 4-man competition for 2 spots. I really think we're going to have to wait until summer camp to see if Garnet Hollis Jr. from Northwestern, who committed and won't be here for spring football, but will be here for the summer, already slides into one of those starting corner positions. Otherwise, it's either going to be Jacoby Spells, Aiden Garnes from Duquesne, Montre Miller, who's a 6th-year player who didn't play this past season because of injury, a transfer in from Kent State, and T.J. Crandall, who I talked about and could potentially, because of his youth, be used in a different capacity in the secondary. So, corners. Who's going to emerge at corners? Is it some guy like a Jacoby Spells that steps up? Is it Montre Miller because he's already been around the program for a year, so has a little bit of a leg up on Aiden Garnes. Or, Garnes was really the first Mountaineer out of the portal to commit, wants to be in Morgantown, not necessarily, I'm sure, afraid of competition. He's a fourth-year guy as well, so he wants to prove it. So that's it. Let me go through my 5 one more time, just rattle them off real quick. Nick Malone at right tackle, Traylon Ray and Rodney Gallagher at receivers, Tai French at outside linebacker, and whoever emerges at cornerback. That's your top 5 players that I'm watching this spring season. Who are you watching? Leave your comments here on YouTube. I want to hear, how do you feel, offense, defense, special teams, who you watching, and if you like this video, smash that like button. Love to have you a subscriber on the channel. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. Love the Mountaineers. Let's go. Talk to you soon.